Hello everyone, my name is Jinjos, and we are continuing our playthrough of Bageltops' Marvel Legendary campaign. Today we are playing mission number 5, and we got some great gameplay coming up, and quite a shift in the team roster, so let's jump right in. Mission 5, Massive Earthquake Generator. After traveling for what felt like hours, navigating the twists and turns perfectly, despite never taking these roads before in your life, you arrive at a decadent old mansion, surrounded by broad trunk trees and covered in ivy. You enter the building cautiously, yet curious. What did the professor mean by the original mutant? As you enter, you are greeted by a bald man sitting in a wheelchair. You recognize him as the mutant rights activist, Charles Xavier, which confirms your suspicion. Xavier is indeed the same Professor X who initially contacted you. We add Professor X to the team, replacing Cable. He explains that normally he would keep his identity secret, but desperate times call for desperate measures. An ancient mutant, An Sabah Nur, put to a seemingly eternal slumber 1,000 years ago, has awakened. He now takes the name Apocalypse, and his ultimate goal is world domination. Not only does he want to rule mutant kind, he would see all Homo sapiens eradicated as well. Xavier warns that Apocalypse will not waste any time and could launch his first assault at any moment. In order to have any chance of success in defeating Apocalypse, he explains he will need more than just your leadership and strength of the local heroes, but that of some other powerful mutant allies. Unfortunately, Xavier had already sent them to Los Angeles, where they're currently on a mission to track down and defeat the conniving Mr. Sinister. What's with these names? You think to yourself. And Xavier responds, only this time you hear the words inside your own head. Sinister plans to unleash a chain of earthquakes across the West Coast to prepare for Apocalypse's arrival. If you are willing to aid my students, be warned, not only is Sinister cunning, requiring calculated covert operations, but the sheer force of his earthquake generators can only be stopped by brute strength, so prepare accordingly. We are then presented with the option to add multiple new members to the team. We add Bishop to the team, replacing Domino. We are then able to add Iceman to the team, and this is a pretty big deal, as Iceman is considered one of the most powerful heroes in Marvel Legendary. We replace Wolverine Dark City with Iceman. We then have the option to add Nightcrawler to the team, but as he doesn't provide any support for Iceman, we decide to pass. Bobby, aka Iceman, taps you on the shoulder with an ice-cold finger. Excuse me, I need to confess something. I'd love to help you out, but, well, one of the reasons I'm at Xavier's Academy is to learn to control my power. As it currently is, when I'm around super strong guys, like the Hulk, my mutant power is trying to match them, and it gets really hard to hold back. I can end up freezing up my own team, so if you're bringing along anyone like that, I'm probably going to hurt the team more than I help. But if that's not the case, I can totally hold my own. If we decide to keep Iceman on the team, we will have to remove any hero that has a Strength Hero class card, meaning we would lose Rogue and Colossus. We really want to give Iceman a try, so we remove Rogue and Colossus from the team, and bring in Storm and Wolverine from the core set. Before we dive into the gameplay, let's take a look at some of the synergies our heroes produce. The main star of the show is Iceman. His 2 common cards can produce massive amounts of recruit and attack by playing multiple ranged heroes, and the support cards we have are great on their own. Gathering Stormcloud will help us draw into more ranged heroes. Lightning Bolt will stop villains from progressing towards the street and bridge. Psionic Astral Form will be triggered very easily, and whatever the cost will not only draw us into more ranged heroes, but possibly thin our deck as well. Whatever the cost also connects us to another archetype, which is not nearly as focused as Iceman's, but has a similar game plan. We already have some synergy between whatever the cost and absorb energies, by drawing us a card, KOing a card, and gaining to recruit. To speed up our deck thinning, we also have Class Dismissed, which can KO more cards, but also keep the HQ nice and fresh. Other instinct cards we add are Hypnotic Charm and Keen Senses, which will help us draw more and smooth out our draws as well, while we wait for whatever the cost and Class Dismissed to do their job. Stack the deck will work well in both decks, and it just helps smooth out our hands. Looking at our uncommon cards, Frenzy Slash will work perfectly in this deck, and could be extremely powerful, leading us to drawing our whole deck in one turn. Looking back at our Iceman deck, we have 2 big hitters, Concussion Blast and Frostbite Armor, with Frostbite Armor being as much superior Frenzy Slash, and this can easily draw our deck all in one go. Looking at our 2 decks, we also have Telepathic Probe and Spinning Cyclone, which can go in either deck as generic good cards. Unfortunately, we have to leave one hero behind, and after some deliberation, we decide to leave Storm behind. While I believe Professor X would be the correct choice, I haven't had the chance to play with him often, so we keep him around, and we shift the priorities of recruiting whatever the cost and Telepathic Probe to the Iceman deck, to fill in the ranged heroes we lost by leaving Storm behind. Now that we have a game plan, let's move into setup. Today we are going to be taking on the Massive Earthquake Generator scheme. The villain deck will have 8 twists, and when one is drawn, we will have to reveal a strength hero or KO the top card of our decks. This is going to be really rough as we only have one strength class and frostbite armor. Evil will win when the number of non-gray heroes in the KO pile is 3 times the number of players, so in this case, it is 6. We will be facing off against Mr. Sinister. He has 8 HP, but he will gain plus 1 HP for each bystander he has. When a Master Strike is drawn, he will capture a bystander, and then we will have to reveal a covert hero or discard cards equal to the number of bystanders he has. First card in our starting HQ is Stack the Deck. This allows us to draw 2 cards and then place 1 card from our hand on top of our deck. Next is Keen Senses, which will grant us 1 attack, and when activated by an instinct hero, will draw us a card. Happy to see a couple cheap options early in the game. Next is Concussion Blast, which grants 3 damage, and when activated by 2 ranged heroes, will grant us an additional 3. Another Keen Senses is added, along with Healing Factor. This will grant us 2 attack, and we can KO a wound to draw a card. Wounds won't be appearing a lot in this setup, but it's good to use to activate our future cards. Harrison wins the Gumball Chewing Contest, and starts us off. Harrison draws 3 agents, 3 troopers, and then a bystander from the villain deck, which Mr. Sinister captures. Harrison plays 3 agents, and recruits Stack the Deck, wanting to keep his options open to which archetype he will go for. It is replaced by Whatever the Cost. This card will draw us a card, and when activated by a covert hero, will allow us to KO a card. He passes. Miles draws 5 agents, 1 trooper, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Neither can reveal a strength hero, so Miles KOs an agent from the top of his deck, and Harrison KOs a trooper. He plays 5 agents, and recruits Concussion Blast, wanting to spend all of his recruit, and gain a strong attacking card early. It is replaced by Hypnotic Charm, which will grant us 3 recruit, and we can look at the top card of our deck and discard it or keep it there. If it is activated by an instinct hero, we can do the same effect to the other player. He passes. Harrison draws 5 agents, a trooper, and then a Mystique from the villain deck. When she escapes, she will become a Scheme Twist that takes effect immediately. He plays 5 agents and makes the move toward the instinct archetype by recruiting Keen Senses, replacing it with Ice Shield. This card will grant us 2 damage, and when activated by a ranged hero, will give us plus 1 attack for each ranged hero played this turn. He then recruits Hypnotic Charm. It is replaced by Absorb Energies. This card will grant us 2 attack, and each time a card is KO'd, it will grant us 2 recruit. He passes. Miles draws 2 agents, 4 troopers, and a Mag Goon from the villain deck. This henchman has the bribe mechanic, which means we can use any combination of recruit and attack to defeat him. In addition, we also will have to KO a hero when we fight him. He plays out and recruits Whatever the Cost, replacing it with Frenzied Slashing. We then fight the Goon, KOing a trooper. He passes. Harrison draws 3 agents, 2 troopers, Stack the Deck, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Harrison KOs an agent, while Miles KOs a trooper. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing an agent and Keen Senses, placing the Keen Senses back on top, as we won't be able to activate it. He plays 4 agents and recruits Keen Senses, hoping for another 2-cost card to replace it. He's rewarded by replacing it with Stack the Deck, which he recruits. It is replaced by Class Dismissed. He passes. Miles draws 5 agents, Concussion Blast, and a Mag Goon from the villain deck. He plays out and then recruits Ice Slide, replacing it with Healing Factor. He then fights the Goon, KOing an agent. He passes. Harrison draws 3 agents, 1 trooper, Keen Senses, Hypnotic Charm, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Neither can reveal a strength hero, so Harrison KOs a trooper from the top of his deck, and a Bad Shuffle KOs Concussion Blast from Miles. This will put the KO'd hero count to 1. He plays Hypnotic Charm, revealing an agent, and discarding it. He then plays an activated Keen Senses, drawing Stack the Deck. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing an agent and a trooper, placing the agent back on top. He plays 3 agents, and recruits Frenzied Slashing, replacing it with Keen Senses. A lot of Wolverine support cards coming through. He passes. Miles draws 3 agents, 2 troopers, Whatever the Cost, and then a Goon from the villain deck. He plays Whatever the Cost, drawing an agent. He plays 3 agents, and with no Iceman cards coming through, he decides to recruit Absorb Energies. It is replaced with another copy of Absorb Energies. He passes. Harrison draws 3 agents, 1 trooper, Keen Senses, Stack the Deck, and then a Goon from the villain deck. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing 2 agents, and placing Keen Senses back on top, since he can't activate it this turn. He plays 5 agents, and recruits Class Dismissed, so that he can freshen up the HQ for Miles, and is replaced with Frenzied Slashing. He then recruits Keen Senses, replacing it with Ice Slide. He passes. Miles draws 4 agents, Ice Slide, Whatever the Cost, and then a Vertigo from the villain deck. When we fight her, each player will discard their hand and draw cards equal to the number of cards they discarded. He plays whatever the cost, drawing an agent. He then plays out and recruits Ice Slide, replacing it with Hypnotic Charm. He then fights the Goon in the bank, KOing an agent. He passes. Harrison draws 2 agents, a Trooper, Hypnotic Charm, Stack the Deck, Keen Senses, and then another Vertigo from the villain deck. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing Keen Senses and Frenzied Slashing, placing the Trooper on top. He plays Keen Senses, then an activated Hypnotic Charm. He reveals a Trooper for himself and an agent for Miles, discarding both. He plays Frenzied Slashing, drawing Keen Senses and an agent. He plays Keen Senses, drawing Class Dismissed. He plays Class Dismissed, bottoming Healing Factor, replacing it with Deep Freeze. This card will draw us a card, and when activated by a ranged hero, will give +1 recruit for each ranged hero played. We also KO an agent from our hand using Class Dismissed. He plays his last Keen Senses, drawing to Stack the Deck. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing an agent and a Trooper. Not needing any extra attack, he places the Trooper on top. He then plays out and recruits Frenzied Slashing, replacing it with Class Dismissed. He then takes out Mystique, removing the potential of another Scheme Twist going off. He passes. Miles draws 1 agent, 2 Troopers, Absorb Energies, Ice Slide, whatever the cost, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Neither can reveal, so Miles KOs an agent, and Harrison KOs Class Dismissed from the top of their decks, bringing the KO'd hero count to 2. He plays Absorb Energies, and then an activated whatever the cost, drawing an agent. He KOs an agent from his discard pile, gaining 2 recruit from Absorb Energies. He plays Ice Slide, and then takes out Vertigo. Him and Harrison both discard their hands, with Miles drawing an agent, 2 Troopers, and an Ice Slide. He plays out, and then recruits Deep Freeze, replacing it with Mind Control. Professor X's rare card will grant us 6 attack, and when we defeat a villain, we gain it as a hero card, which grants attack equal to their HP. He then takes out the Goon on the rooftops, KOing a Trooper. He then recruits Class Dismissed, wanting to start digging himself for more Iceman cards. It is replaced with Psionic Astral Form. This card grants us 1 attack, and when activated by an X-Men card, will grant us an additional 2 attack. He passes. Harrison draws 3 agents, Hypnotic Charm, Keen Senses, Frenzied Slashing, and then a Blockbuster from the villain deck. The villain will get +2 HP for each bystander he has captured, and because there is a villain in the bank, he will capture 1 along with Vertigo. Harrison plays Keen Senses, and then plays an activated Hypnotic Charm. He reveals a Stack the Deck for himself, and a Class Dismissed for Miles, keeping both. He plays Frenzied Slashing, drawing Keen Senses, and Stack the Deck. He plays Keen Senses, drawing another Keen Senses. He then plays Keen Senses, drawing Frenzied Slashing. He plays Frenzied Slashing, drawing 2 Troopers. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing 2 agents, and then placing an agent back on top. He plays out, drawing enough to attack Mr. Sinister. We rescue a standard bystander, and draw Telepathic Manipulation. He will capture a bystander from Miles' victory pile, but luckily he doesn't have any. Harrison recruits Hypnotic Charm, replacing it with Concussion Blast. He then recruits Healing Factor, hoping to use it to start the chain without missing an activation. He replaces it with Stack the Deck. He passes. Miles draws 3 agents, 2 Ice Slides, Absorb Energies, and then a Blob from the villain deck. The Blob can't be fought unless we reveal an X-Men hero, which is guaranteed to happen. He plays 2 Ice Slides, activating 1, and Absorb Energies. He takes out Vertigo, rescuing a bystander, and causing him and Harrison to discard their hands, with Miles drawing a Trooper, Class Dismissed, and Deep Freeze. He plays Class Dismissed, bottoming Absorb Energies, and replacing it with Hypnotic Charm. He plays Deep Freeze, drawing whatever the cost. He plays whatever the cost, drawing an agent, and then KOing the Trooper from his hand. He plays his last agent, and then recruits Concussion Blast, replacing it with Card Shark. This card will grant us 2 attack, and also reveal the top card of our deck. If it is an X-Men hero, they will draw it. He then recruits Astral Form, though Stack the Deck might have been a better option. He replaces it with Card Shark. Harrison draws an agent, 2 Troopers, Healing Factor, Keen Senses, Hypnotic Charm, and then a Master Strike from the villain deck. Mr. Sinister will capture a bystander, and then since Harrison can't reveal, he will discard an agent. He plays Healing Factor, and then Hypnotic Charm. He reveals a Keen Senses for himself, and then an Ice Slide for Miles, keeping both. He then plays Keen Senses, drawing a Keen Senses. He plays another Keen Senses, drawing Stack the Deck. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing Hypnotic Charm and Keen Senses, placing a Trooper back on top. He plays Hypnotic Charm, discarding the Trooper from the top of his deck. He plays Keen Senses, drawing Frenzied Slashing. He plays Frenzied Slashing, drawing an agent and a Trooper. He plays out and then hits Mr. Sinister, rescuing a radiation scientist. We decide to KO a trooper to thin our deck even more. We then draw Master Geneticist. We reveal the top 7 cards of the villain deck and capture all bystanders. These are the 7 cards revealed, and a lot of hurt is coming. No bystanders were revealed, so the rest go back on top in a random order. He then recruits Card Shark, replacing it with Deep Freeze. He passes. Miles draws 3 agents, Absorb Energies, Deep Freeze, Class Dismissed, then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Since neither can reveal, Miles painfully KOs a Deep Freeze, and Harrison reveals an agent, raising the number of KO'd heroes to 3. He plays Deep Freeze, drawing Ice Slide. He plays Class Dismissed, bottoming Hypnotic Charm, replacing it with Ice Slide. He then plays out and takes out the Blob. He recruits Deep Freeze, replacing it with Absorb Energies. He then recruits Stack the Deck, replacing it with whatever the cost. He passes. Harrison draws 4 agents, Frenzied Slashing, Stack the Deck, and then a Juggernaut from the villain deck. Miles has no discard pile, but Harrison KOs an agent and a trooper. At this point, Harrison's deck is thin enough that he has enough card draw in the deck that by the end of the turn, he ends up with his entire deck in his hand. In the end, Harrison ends up recruiting Mind Control and replacing it with Stack the Deck. He then hits Mr. Sinister, drawing Plans Within Plans, which will capture a total of 3 bystanders from Harrison's victory pile. He passes. Miles draws 2 agents, Astroform, whatever the cost, Absorb Energies, Concussion Blast, and then a Master Strike from the villain deck. Mr. Sinister will capture a bystander, but both players can reveal a covert hero to prevent the discard. Miles plays Absorb Energies, and then whatever the cost, drawing a Stack the Deck, and KOing an agent from hand. He plays Stack the Deck, drawing an agent, and Deep Freeze, putting the agent back on top. He plays Astroform and Concussion Blast, and is 1 damage short of taking out Mr. Sinister. He then plays Deep Freeze, drawing an agent. He plays out and recruits Ice Slide, replacing it with Ice Slide. He then recruits whatever the cost, replacing it with Frostbite Armor, the key to the whole Iceman archetype. He passes. Harrison draws an agent, Frenzied Slashing, Hypnotic Charm, Stack the Deck, Healing Factor, Keen Senses, and then a Master Strike from the villain deck. He captures a bystander, but both players can reveal a covert hero to prevent the discard. A similar play pattern occurs as the last turn, playing enough cards that he draws his entire deck, including his new card, Mind Control. This leads us to having enough damage to fight Mr. Sinister for the 4th and final time, winning the game. A really great game from both of our players, with Harrison coming out on top with 34 points, and Miles coming in with 13, wishing his Iceman archetype deck came together just a bit quicker. With one final blow, aided by Xavier's advanced team and guided by his directions, you destroyed the final generator, and Mr. Sinister along with it. Your team worked in perfect synchrony, and exceeded all expectations. Now there's nothing to stop you from taking on Apocalypse. Write down, US West Coast saved, and Mr. Sinister defeated. We can now swap out any 2 heroes for any 2 X-Men heroes from the core set, along with Bishop, Nightcrawler, and Iceman. We decided to bring in some new faces to the team, bringing in Nightcrawler, replacing Storm. We left Storm behind last game, and Nightcrawler will provide another boost in the Instinct archetype deck that Harrison played. Thank you all so much for joining me for another mission in Bageltops Marvel Legendary Campaign. Join me next time, when we are going to be taking on Apocalypse and his 4 horsemen. Good luck on your adventures, and I hope you have a wonderful day.